In the studio, we have been joined by Dr. Jonathan Sandi Flagbearer for the National Unity and Reconciliation Party, NURP. Dr. Sandi is here to talk on his plans and what he wants to achieve if he becomes president of the Republic of Sierra Leone. Good morning, Dr. Sandi, and welcome.
Good morning, Lamrana. Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure having you. So, congratulations on becoming the flag bearer.
Yes.
The NURP, you are contesting for the presidency for the second time.
Yes.
What has changed within the party itself? Because, you know, most times people have to hear about political parties when it comes to elections, and afterwards they're gone. How were you elected?
I think let me take this opportunity, first of all, to thank AYV and all the media, whether print or mass media in Sierra Leone, for over the years having stand with the National Unity and Reconciliation Party. And as you know, 2018, we were one of the new kids in the block. What we said, our agenda at that time was to make sure we lay the foundation for getting into what we call contributing towards a change in political culture. So we came 1 week to the candidate nomination processes in 2017. We were registered formally by the National Political Party, then Political Party Registration Commission, now regulation, on the 20th of December 2017. So things have changed. Since that registration, we came in as the new kids in the block 1 week to the election, but we were able to lay the foundation gradually. We know change in political culture because, as we know, our slogan is cut across. We say we don't tire with Mende line versus Stimney line. We want to see how we contribute towards a change in the political culture. So culture doesn't change over time. It takes a lot of time to mature. But I can tell you, from 2018 to now, the National Unity and Reconciliation Party, political ideology, shared vision has matured to the extent that our second national delegate convention, I'm very grateful to Allah and God Almighty that it went on very successfully. Imagine for 3 months we have been involved in the lower level election. We have not done our convention as other traditional parties we do. We have followed the rules and regulations laid down, procedures laid down by the Political Party Registration Commission. We did some mistakes. For example, when it started ward level election, the PPRC would say, "But we not tell we." So we had to reverse and go and start again. Last 3 months, Lamrana, we have been. But what is very significant, what gave us this momentum, was last year, AYV and many other, since 2019, we have been celebrating January 18, which is defined as in a Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, recommendation 8, as a day of national reconciliation. And the question is, when celebrating the Day of National Reconciliation, which is synonymous to our party, you ask the fundamental questions. Are the victims of the war, are they in a better situation today or worse off? Those who were sexually abused during the war, the women, the amputees, the orphans. So we have managed to work with those demographic patterns, including youth and young girls who, I'm sorry to say this, many of who have resorted to commercial sex trade, and they have direct link to the post-war situation. So in that momentum, that has helped build the foundation for the National Unity and Reconciliation Party.
What the ideology, on what, ideology was the NURP formed, by you or the founding members of the party?
It's a shared vision. First of all, we are promoting, our ideologies around promoting the implementation of the TRC recommendations, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Remember, I was Chief of Staff of National Security with President Tijan Kaba. Of course, I'm sure you have the institutional memory. When I left the shores of Sierra Leone in 2004 and 2005, after we completed the war, on January 18, 2002, when Tijan Kaba, late President Tijan Kaba, went to Lunge Airport in the midst of the African Union, the United Nations, ECOWAS, and all the parties to the conflict. Major General Paul Kuruma was there, and then in proxy, Fode Sanko wasn't there, but there was Colonel Issa Sise. He declared the war over. I mean, that was significant. And I was part of that journey, moving Sierra Leone where President Kaba led our nation in terms of the conflict transformation spectrum, led our nation from conflict, from war to peace. So after that situation, I left in 2004 and 5, and then was part of UNDP here. But what I know very well, I haven't gone through that conflict transformation part in terms of moving from war to peace, to post-war recovery, peace consolidation, and then post-war reconstruction and development, and laying the foundation for sustainable development. I think that trajectory, we have missed something. And I knew, having worked with Tijankaba and that regime, the Tijankaba regime, for almost 7 to 8 years, to a decade, with that institutional memory, while I've been sitting back in Nairobi or in Geneva and then in Switzerland and many places where the UN has been rotating me, I kept saying to myself, are we missing something? Remember, after the TRC, Bishop Pompa, J.C. Ompa, published the report in 2004, a lot of the recommendations were made, and the commission was suddenly closed down. In other words, after investigation and publishing the report and recommendation, most of which were related to what were the drivers and root causes of the war. Bad governance, corruption, wasteful spending, gross human rights issues are all in that report. So Sierra Leone went into war because of this thing, one-party state. I mean, you remember those things. I'm sure you were small boys, but we suffered a lot in our generation. To the extent that our generation were either at some point where we had our generation, at some point, Sierra Leoneans had different names. Either you are IDP, you are a combatant, or you are a refugee. There was nobody who was in part of that.
Is the ideology of NURP centered around security, the TRC recommendation, its implementation, based on your background as someone who's worked in the security sector? This is Dr. Sandi's idea. This is what I want to push, rather than a collective ideology of which you have different ideas of different people to lead or to change what they think is not right for the country.
It's a shared vision. Yes, somebody based on my own institutional memory. I mean, in any command structure, if it's command and control, you must have a lead. Somebody, my job has been to facilitate that. Remember, we started when, part of the thing, when I wanted to, but I have to be honest, when I wanted to transition to a national politician, to say, I remember when I was leaving for the UN, on this corridor of State House, His Excellency President Tijankaba called me. I was hesitant to escape. Imagine you have been trained to lead, I must confess, the nation's intelligence services. And I was losing that. So I was very panicked. So how do I manage my transition to go to the United Nations when I got the job? But he gave me courage, come here. He said, I know you, when you go to the United Nations, do as I have done in my life. He said, I was in the civil servant, I worked up to 1967, 68, and I left for the United Nations. But I made sure when I retired, I came back to move Sierra Leone from war to peace. So I want you, at some point, think about our legacy. So this particular election, I am on a mission to help put Sierra Leone back on track where Tijankaba left it. I know that he moved this country from war to peace, meaning the security sector reform program, the DDR, reform of the defense and security sector, reform of the civil service and the public sector, including reform of the financial sector, meaning bringing income tax, custom together through the National Revenue Authority. I was part of that process. I have that institutional memory. And therefore, however, since he left, we have seen multiple and complex challenges coming back to the nation state between former President Ernest Koroma and now this regime headed by His Excellency Brigadier Madabio. So those gaps, the root causes of the conflict, which are outlined in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I've started seeing these things again. In fact, now it's worse. We are seeing identity politics, tribal and regional politics has hyper. We are a highly polarized society now. And on the basis of my knowledge, I've been served the continent. I just came 3 weeks ago from Libya. I am leading a project there on political mediation. In May, there's what we call National Political Dialogue in Libya. Currently, I have a split life. While I do national politics, externally, I continue to supply Africa as well. I am currently the chairperson for the African Union Peace and Security Council. So when I go to provide support at the regional and continental level, I see these things. 2 years ago, I led the process in South Sudan to give South Sudan what we call one peace-building strategic framework, where I was anchored in the Ministry of Peace Building with Dr. Stephen Coyle, the minister himself, tutelage him, coach him on how we can put South Sudan on track. The same situation in South Sudan, where electoral competition has become the meal ticket for tribes, the Dinka versus the Noel, the Bari, and the Achole. So now in South Sudan, for example, Lambrana, you will see, apart from President Salva Kiir, you have 4 vice presidents based on each tribe. Identity politics is part of this. Rwanda, we saw the situation in Rwanda between the two in 1994 that led to the genocide. We also saw in 2007 and 2008 what led to the conflict in Kenya between the Kikuyus and the Luos, when it was Raila Odinga versus the same is ongoing in Ethiopia between the Tigris versus the Oromo. As I speak, that is the conflict now going on. So on those bases, when I come back home, the question you ask, if I have that institutional memory, both on the continent and my country, and I see we are highly polarized along politics of exclusion, tribalism, wasteful spending and corruption, I think we have the obligation to say no. The opposite of divisiveness, exclusion, is national unity. Dr. And that's why we started with, we say our mission is to ensure that we unite the strength of our people to be able to secure economic prosperity for all. Without national unity, we cannot secure or benefit from the national resources we have in this country. And that is my mission,
Sandi,
and that's the mission of the
here.
National Unity and Reconciliation.
Thank you. Let me come in there. Of these institutional reforms, in one of the interviews you did, I think it was back in 2020, you made it clear that on the institutional reforms, you have plans to move the country from what you called public administration to public governance. What's the difference between that?
There are two differences. You know, my master's degree was in public policy and management from the University of Manchester. And I was taught by Professor Barrentos that the theories around how do you move a nation state from public administration, which was traditional bureaucratic principal agent, but you have the principal, which is the minister, and then the agent is the permanent secretary. And we saw over many decades in public policy management, the public administration, which is a transitional model, that's characterized with a lot of corruption, where the minister and the permanent secretary, you know, the civil service in a country, and we must be honest, they are the heart. They will tell you, civil servants will tell you, but ministers come and go, but we will stay. So therefore, you will see a genuine minister come in every nation state, and then what you saw in the past, and even now, the permanent secretary or the director general, who is the vote controller, will tell you, Mr. Minister, you fear not do, you shouldn't do. The main source of, I come from national security and I deal with economic intelligence. The main source of corruption can come from the civil service, where you have one principal, one agent. That we call the principal agent theory, where the minister, that's the public administration, where the permanent secretary is the big boss. But what new public governance is saying, you need to move the state from public administration, which is between the minister and then the permanent secretary, lack of accountability, transparency, to involve public governance. Public governance is a Venn diagram. Here you have the state, the role of the civil society, the role of the local government decentralization. But at what point do they interact? How does media interface into that? So, because these are all instruments of national power. The 5 instruments of national power also involve the media, the journalists, the civil society, bringing them to the space. When I was taught that model, how do you move a state from public administration and public governance, it helped to be trust in state institutions. The nation state itself is small. If you check our current civil service or public sector number of personnel, it is not up to 50,000 to 100 or 200 or 400, 1 million. We are 8.2 million people, but our civil service cannot be 1 million. In that context, the nation state is small. So how do you ensure that non-state actors, such as you, can be involved into that policy-making, decision-making, so that we can build trust and deliver services for the people, public goods that could make. But if you leave journalists out, you leave civil society out, you leave the local traditional authorities out, you leave the youths, you leave the amputees, you exclude them, the victims of war, then you are not achieving public governance. Public governance is about the state and non-state actors. Then they can trust that the state can deliver services to the poor. At the moment, electricity problem, data, you don't negotiate with people. You just say, okay, today I am increasing the data for mobile phone and engage people in public governance. That's what Tijan Kaba called inclusive governance.
Speaking on trust in public institutions, I want to take your attention particularly to the judiciary, which was part of the TRC report. Yep. There is this huge lack in trust in the judiciary. If you win, let's say, this election, what are some of the reforms that you think would be necessary to be made in that particular area?
First of all, I have my vision, I'm sure it will be declined this week, what we call the JPJ Big Six agenda. I hope the Big Six agenda. Okay. I'm coming with a Big Six agenda. How do I see the future of Sierra Leone? The future of Sierra Leone I want for my people with a shared vision are along that Big Six agenda. Number one is to enhance national unity. You know, I think we are, the core challenges now, as you all know, we're highly polarized along ethnic identity politics. 8 speeches for each honor. So at what point do we enhance political cooperation among the 18 tribes and 17 political parties we have? And I will do that through, we have discussed this with Lambra and many, the 21 years after war, we have not been able to complete the National Constitutional Review process. For God's sake, that constitution, when we were in Leone, was agreed by parties to the conflict that it should be the new state building project for Sierra Leone. The 1991 constitution, we all agree, made us a one-party state. Too much power in the hands of the supreme authority. The independence of the judiciary is not there. In Kenya, for example, when we facilitated the 2010 National Constitutional Review process, it was made clear the judiciary should be independent on its own. The appointment of the Chief Justice, for example, is televised nationally. AYV will put us here on whatever, and people listen to the interview when they shortlist. I will do that. I will facilitate a process where the Chief Justice and judges, when they are being recruited, it will be an open thing so that people, the media can facilitate that. Then we get the best Sierra Leonean to do. So that it could not be a top-button approach. But at the moment, as you know, the 1991 Constitution, Lambrana and my dear sister, it is highly convoluted, where power is centered on one person. For God's sake, the Constitution, some people tell me, the Constitution is sweet. It's not about sweet. It's about making sure that we build trust and relationship among our people. So what I will do clearly, under that, I have defined in what I call the Big Six, number 4 agenda. But let me go back. Number 2 is really about fixing the economy. If we are not together, that's why our priority, as our ideology say, the national unity and social cohesion building. When we are together as a unit of effort, the fishermen call it catch per unit of effort. No fisherman will go without horsepower, without the boat, without engine and that. So they put things together and then they catch it collectively. So we, as 18 tribes, 17 political parties, I want to facilitate that process where we can enhance political cooperation to secure the new constitution. And I will empower, I will make sure I take back the constitution process to the Law Reform Commission. The Law Reform Commission was established by Act of Parliament. Why did we remove the constitutional review process into a committee? That is a top-button approach. I want to facilitate a bottom-top approach where Sierra Leone will be inspired. The constitution-making process is not an act of parliament. It's the supreme rule of law. And one of those issues will be the judiciary. Second, fixing the economy. The economy is not working for every Sierra Leonean. We know that. The amputees have been excluded. They tell me, Pa, you name not come. When they go to some of these institutions, whether it's NACSA or not, we have been excluding them. These guys died for democracy. Their ones were chopped. They say, Etina, when I go vote for Tijan Kaba, we are going to... This is what happened. Why are we so wicked? They have been excluded from the economy. And therefore, we know the economy again, we know the economic crisis, cost of living, high economic hardship is there. I will not leave public policy prior to fix the economy. There I'll do free education. I'll make sure our national investment, our national consolidated fund, public priority will go towards fixing the economy. Number 3 is to increase food production. I want to invest more in agriculture sector to make sure that crops, livestock, and fisheries, we have enough. A country that is hungry, people do not have resilience, they are hungry, they are not. Sierra Leone have suffered a lot. We need to reprioritize our public policy priority that can increase food production, and then people can. Research, UNDP, and many others show that Sierra Leone have 75% of our population are basic consumers. We are not producing. We are a nation of consumption. We depend on aid dependency. At what point do we move Sierra Leone, 75% consumers, to production? I want to see my economic policy is to move this country from a 75% consumers to 75% or more producers. We need to move our nation from a consumption state to a production state. So I know how to do that, through the manufacturing, to the mining. That is coming. Number 4, how do we promote equality and inclusion? I just mentioned youth. Unemployment rate of youth is low. The young girls are suffering. Many of them are resorting to commercial trade. They have been excluded from the economy. We want to see the victims of war, the sexually abused, the amputees being part of equity. Research have said 10,000 loans each Sierra Leone makes through the National Revenue Authority. 10,000 loans. By research by Oxfam, UNDP says 46% of that 10,000 loans goes to the rich. That is the political appointees and the public, the politicians. We, the political elite, we consume 46% of that 10,000 loans each, which means only 16% goes to 50 or more % of the population. That is 1,600 loans is what gets out of every 10,000 loans. Look at the income inequality. The income inequality between the rich and the poor is very heavy. We need to ensure we stimulate social development investment program for the youth, and then NACSA is not functioning anymore. We need to empower, review the Act of Parliament to make sure that our social protection scheme, the ex-servicemen are suffering. Some of them laid their lives for this country, but we have not been able. They sexually abuse women. They are there and suffering. I can tell you, my dear sister, when I went to Kono, yeah, mama, I suffered, who is now I call my girlfriend, double amputee. You cannot believe what you call pistolate for a woman. I'm sorry to say this. Every month there are women in this country, our mothers, our sisters, who have to go to the medical. They were raped by 70 men during the war. They are still there. I celebrated, I put smile in their face during December. And we have been on this, Lamranda. The vision is not waiting for politics until campaign time. For the last 4 years, we have been celebrating January 18th every year as a day of reconciliation with these victims. I care about them. I care about the poor.
Dr. Sandi, with all this vision, you know, I can still recall your plans for the last election. In the last election, the presidential election, you pulled 0.1%.
I came for name recognition.
That's just, you got only 2,318 of the total votes cast. And you were one of the least performers in that presidential race. And with all these ideas, where are you getting the inspiration or hope of contesting?
It's very different. I told you, you cannot be a king without a kingdom. I was coming from the United Nations. 1 week to election, 3 months, December 20, then December 20 when they registered our party. Then 1 week after that, we went into candidate nomination process to submit names. Where was I going to get councillors? Do you want me to waste money or re-engineer or MPs? We managed to put some councillors and MPs. But as I said, I was a new kid on the block. I didn't even go to my village.
What has changed 5 years?
Things have changed. I've been to Moyamba, I've been to Bo, my mother's land, everybody know. I went to the village in Koyama. I've been to celebrate traditional authorities. I've gone to my grandfather's grave. I say, I'm here to battle for redemption of the soul of the people. I want to come and ensure I live permanently to put Sierra Leone back on track where Tijankaba left it. And people are listening. Now, 1,200 delegates were there. Ask your staff, they were there. This is different. We now have wards, 446 wards. We now have constituencies, 132 to 35 constituencies. We've done elections. We now have districts, 16 district delegates were here. Then we now have the national executive is functioning. So the national political infrastructure that will respond to bring more votes is here not to stay. So what I'm saying is,
are you into this to win, or you still continue with the name recognition? You want to be known.
No, the investment Ramranda we are putting to the look. I have a clear, none of these candidates that have coming up has a clear campaign message for this thing. I'm the only guy who have said, I will move Sierra Leone from where we are, from consumption to production. I've also said we'll promote equality and inclusion, which is exclusion. We are excluding certain vulnerable populations. I've also said we'll rebuild public trust in our police, in our ONS, in our security. Judiciary spoke about. I'm ready to make sure we rebuild. We used to call it Force for Good when I was in State House. The police reform, which was linked by the security sector reform, which I led and contributed with my colleagues in State House, we will make sure we rebuild that trust. The police partnership board is not working. The concept of community policing, which you interact between society and then the police, that level of trust is reducing. You saw what happened in McKinney. How are we engaged in what we call community police strategy? I am bringing back a process of this. I'm very sure that people will listen to me.
What's your strategy to win this election? Because it seems the messages are the same. We've spoken to a lot of... Yesterday we had the NDA flag bearer here. It was the same issue. Address unemployment, national reconciliation, and all of that. So what's your own strategy? If you read the manifesto...
My campaign message is simple. It's about putting Sierra Leone back on track beyond politics of exclusion and corrupt regimes.
Okay.
That's my message.
And that is what you
think that's what I'm campaigning on. And I'm campaigning that I say I'm qualified, I believe I'm qualified, experienced to offer 6 policy priorities. It's clear. I'm not mixing on them. Unemployment is just a sum. It's an outcome. I said the country challenge right now, we are not together as a nation and a people. First priority is to ensure, facilitate dialogue and make sure we bring Sierra Leoneans and make sure the only way we can do that, one priority we can do that, is to make sure we've completed the constitutional review process and send it to referendum. And that takes minimum 1 to 2 years. I know I've supported, facilitated through UNDP in Nairobi constitutional. We need to inspire Sierra Leoneans. Sierra Leoneans are not inspired. They are resilient. So that's a clear message. How do we enhance political cooperation among all tribes? It's unique. There's nobody in that. Number 2, I've told you that when you do that, then everybody can be together to fix the economy. I've said the monetary policy, the exchange rate. I am an economist. That's what I do in Fulbe College.
That's the campaign message. That's the campaign message.
Macroeconomic, IMF and World Bank, which other candidates have studied all throughout the Central Bank, cannot work.
Quickly before Zulai comes in, what I'm asking is, what's your strategy to get the votes? The message, this is the message you gave the last time. This is the message other candidates are giving, other flag bearers are giving out there. What's your own strategy to get the votes, to increase your vote from 0.1%?
Now let's be straight. Look at the billboards. Where's the message there? Talk and do. There is no message here. I'm talking about you as a candidate. When you do my message, can I, as a politician, it's a game theory. If I give my strategy on the year, you work on it. Let's be honest. I said I want to campaign on fixing the economy, rebuilding that's my plan. Number 4, I told you I want to make sure we rebuild public trust in state institutions, which is diminished. Lastly, I want to see how we can intensify our international engagement to ensure that we improve, we promote foreign trade investment, we make sure it's a business, we attract foreign direct investment. Those are clear. Having put those agenda, it is clear to me that no other candidate have the ability and skill to manage Sierra Leone domestic and foreign policy needs. This is what I do. So Sierra Leone cannot survive. We live in a world of interdependency, globalization and regionalism. Around the Mano River Union, we have 4 member states. ECOWAS, there are 16. And then you have the African Union, which has 1.3 billion. The question in my head is, Sierra Leone having worked on the continent across and everywhere, how can Sierra Leone, 8.2 million people, survive in a world of interdependency? That's what is in my mind. Meaning, for example, after the war, when Sierra Leone was put after war, most of the things where our economy has come, cost of living and living working conditions for people have come down. They have been influenced by external shocks. 1, Ebola came in 2013 and 14. Number 2, we see COVID-19 came. Now, for example, I know what is in the sub-region. How do I reduce the risk and uncertainty associated with violent extremism and terrorism, which have started? We know that Burkina Faso, Mali, and all this. So I want to see Sierra Leone border management, border security. Border security and management, whether it's through the air, land, and sea, is what I do. No candidate can offer border security and management. The threats and survival of Sierra Leone depend on the risks and uncertainties, whether global health crisis, Ebola, COVID-19, and now we know small arms and light weapons. I was regional director for small arms and drugs for West Africa, based in Bamako for 4 years. So I know that the threat to our survival with our fragile institutions, the law reform, the law enforcement agency and the criminal justice system, they are weak. So I have the ability to fight even to the threat to our economy. I'm coming with an economic security agenda. And that means the threat and risk to our economy is wasteful spending, where it's state capture, organized crime, and laying the foundation for financial corruption. I have the skills to empower the criminal justice system to investigate, prosecute, and convict people who will jail people. The anti-corruption should not be about recovery. How can you get a recovery strategy? Say when you don't thief money, you have to go and pay back, then it's finished. No, we should be jailing ministers. And I'm coming with that with my background in national security and the criminal justice system and rule of law. Will make sure the corruption works for people. And my strategy to win the number of votes is clear. I have a party. The party structures I've explained to you. It is how they function effectively to send out the campaign message.
Let's talk about this, your structure, the party structure generally. What about the presence of women in your party? We haven't heard a lot about that. Tell us about that.
Good news for you. You'll be very joyful. Our new National Secretary General is Christina Bondo, the National Secretary General who was elected 2 days ago on Saturday. She's a lady, young lady. Number two, one of the most interesting elections that happened, my dear sister, during the convention, was the election of electing the National Women's Leader. Guess what happened? The incumbent women's leader went neck to neck with a war victim, national amputee. It was tense. She won. The war victim, Madam Adama Suma, won by 2 votes. It was so thrilling. I'm happy that my colleagues like Madam Femi Cole, the Ahmed Tijani Foundation, the PPRC, the ECR, everyone was there. The election was so amazing. So the meeting the 30% threshold, I can be gracefully tell you that our national executive, with number 3, number 1, number 2, number 3, 2 after 1, will meet those criteria. And we are very happy that we have the financial secretary of our party, the national, is a woman as well. So we have been able, in fact, in the executive, which I'm inheriting after Saturday, I'm very grateful that we have that. At the party structures, in every ward, we have 9 positions elected. One of them is the World Women Empowerment Leader. Then the same for constituencies. Constituency World Women Empowerment. The same for district. So in terms of political architecture, political party architecture, from the ward level, which is the minimum, the basic, to the constituency, to the district, to the regional. For example, I'm very grateful that Madam Zainab Touré is the regional women's leader for the National Regional Organizing Secretary, for example, is Janet Sia Koroma. So I'm telling you, I'm very sensitive to women's needs, and I believe we will not survive without you people. I know what my family is doing to me. I know how much I have benefited from women. Behind any successful man, there must be Lambert and I, a successful one. So I believe that the new women that are coming, Adama Suma, a new national women's leader, who is an amputee, war victim, she will do the best we can do for the people, the women, the vulnerable women who go to bed without feeding their kids. I'm also happy that we have Christiana as a National Secretary General to push that. So in fulfillment of the gimme, do we call it the gimme? The gender. So I'm very happy that without influence, we managed to. It was a very delicate process.
Now, with the percentage Lamrana just spoke about, and now the PPRC has put a ban on public rallies and rather instituted it with, gatherings, town hall meetings, as they call it. Don't you think it will be easier for you since your party do not have that number of crowd, or do you buy the idea? Are you in support of that?
When you say crowd, I really understand. My focus is the votes. The votes. Any candidate, what is now in my head, how do I get 55% of 3.7 million people who registered for Serena? That's what you do. My campaign message, when I do my campaign plan for winning, the winning plan, it's a size. 55%, which by constitution is which is about 1.7 million. That's what is in my head. I work backwards. I've been doing this. So my strategy then, how do I get that to win? So Part of that is 3.7. The voter register last 18 was less than what we have now. And in that case, we understanding that, okay, Falaba, for example, while Ibrahim Kuroma is my party chairman, the voter register seems to suggest that you have 183,000 voters. So my question to him, as part of my strategy, my brother was asking, how do we influence that voter register? For every 16 districts, that's what it is. It's a clear strategy. So what it means is that we invest, we do not want, I was number one, because I also I'm also leading a project for West Africa called Democracy, Election, and Unconstitutional Change of Government. And the trigger point for identity, politics, and conflict is really part of it, disruption, is rallies. So even the United States, in Nigeria, I'm sure one of you were in Nigeria, street rallies are gone. The point is not only cost effective, but what government does in every society now is to designate specific place, they provide security, and then you are there. Remember, as we move, you be in Africa, just as we say Lambrana, when the momentum starts, now you are going to start seeing the cut across momentum. I'll be vulnerable as well as a young party and young people. So getting street rallies might be not productive as we move into that. And from a national security perspective, I think it does not augur well. It is better we have designated place, the National Stadium, how do we call the Atuga Stadium, the YWCA, places that we can say today, the police, for example, we did our national convention, we could have danced on the streets. Not that we don't have the number, we do. But we went to Culture Radio, the conference center, outside grafting. And the whole compound was ours. Eat and drink, dine, play music. But I think it is better for preventing elections, electoral and political election violence. It is better we have the designated places so that we can manage that. In fact, do you know in our Public Election Act, Ramdanda, T-shirts to give, like for example, people know my party. When I go out, they say, sir, now that cap we want, now that T-shirt. I said, no, we are not a party for T-shirt and caps. It's a crime, it's a criminal offense by the Public Election Act to give T-shirts and flyers to person free. I give it to my staff, my party members who buy it, who put it on, but to say, to influence people. So rallies, T-shirts, flyers is gone. We should be looking at public policy issues that people can solve that. That's my own
Let's
take.
take a few comments on our Facebook page. Then we'll take summary. Then we'll come back to you. To continue the program. This one from Anes Barimon, he says, Mr. Sandi knows the issues of this country. To be honest with you, his policies are all outstanding.
The other one says, it's from Swissman, Dr. Sandi, you worked in the United Nations. Did you ever extend your hand in our villages like Moyamba and Bo, like to help your people with water, school, hospital, and education?
Ronald Beresford says, Mr. Sandi, your party and the other parties together as a coalition can only be the way forward for Sierra Leone. Instead of the two oldest parties and that the powers are equal, then Sierra Leone has a chance to develop. Otherwise, it's business as usual.
Ibrahim Salam Kaloko says, this man has a prophetic idea which is caring for the less privileged people. May Allah grant him victory.
Fode Bundu says, anyone can have a very solid campaign message, but the chances of voters that have stuck their heads in the APC and SLPP will be very difficult.
Swissman again says, Dr. Sandi, how many farms do you have and how many investments have you done to this country?
The final one I'll take is from Abdul Kabo. He says, another KKY appears. Sweet talk and good policies. Let's see how he'll perform in the polls.
And for me, the final one says, please ask him about his position on the voters' identification card.
Those are the messages we could take for now. Doc, you've had some of the comments, and I think there was a question as well. You might want to respond to them.
Yeah, I think I'm very grateful and thankful to those who contributed on the conversation we're having. You know, your questions, your interviews are very challenging, but I think we managed to pull it out for people to understand the conversation that is going on. Many of them, I'm very grateful they are positive, and obviously it's inspiring. My job is to inspire Sierra Leoneans. I really want to make sure I spare the 8.2 million people to move our nation, as I say, through a united effort. There are two that were very personal, things that have to do where my mom comes from, where my dad comes from. You know, I hear people say, how much contribution? Can you tell us how much you've done in Bo? Because that's where my mom comes from. And then the Moyamba is also where my grandmother is lying. So I know that some of these things, but people definitely, these are personal, but I will just mention, because in campaigns, I've never seen President Tijan Kaba or any president refer, you ask them, what have they done for their nation can come in. If I start the history of what I've done for Sierra Leone, we will spend the rest of the day here, because from the fisheries sector, when I was fisheries economics, I worked in the Ministry of Marine and Fishery Resources and Agriculture. I know how much we mobilized from Conakry, from Yeliboya, from Godrich, from Tombo, Chenge, along the west-northwest coast of Sierra Leone, contributed a lot through a revolving fund, which was 300 million pounds, 300 million European Union, based in a revolving fund, which we are supporting fishermen, communities. So there are a lot of, when I was head of UNDP here, as head of governance, justice, and rule of law, I did a lot of projects again to post-war reconstruction, development, particularly in Moyamba. For example, the Justice Sector Development Program, I personally influenced how it could start with Moyamba and Bo. Not because I come, because I also went to school in boys' school, Mabroka, Tonkolili. My family is from that end. So the ideology of a cut-across thing is not centered because where my mom, because I was, for example, I was born in Kono. Guess what, Lambrana? On the day which is coming off, it's going to be June 24. I was born in Kwedo Hospital. So it's going to be, I'm looking forward to how Sierra Leoneans will give me that birthday gift by voting for me on my birthday. So that I can move. It's an inspirational, because even in the Quran and the Bible, the name Jonathan, that's how the Hebrew call me. But Jonathan means a gift from God. And I'm sure I'm here to battle for redemption of the soul of this country. I have that conviction. So the two questions that came, yes.
She had another question. Was it about farms?
No, there are two questions. Which
the one was about the farms, and the second one.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, the farm. And then the farm, I have farming, I'm doing. That's why I say it's personal. But
you're public. People want to know.
No, but I want people to know that I have started this 3 or 4 years ago. I hope FAO colleagues are watching. There is this concept of a decade of family farming initiative, which the UN, from 2019 to 2028. So having been part of that conceptual thinking, and I always believe that food production through agriculture is part of the answer to Africa, especially Sierra Leone. Okay. We need to produce what we eat. Import substitution cannot help. So with that concept, from 2019, after the election, I have been down to Teyama, to Mbaumo, how do you call Pendebu, Mbaumo, Eboli land, we have that. That's why I come. So I'm doing farming, let me call that. So the people, even my farm supervisor, I'm sure he's online, PC Farmer is a young, PC William Farmer is my farm supervisor. My elder brother, Henry, also does the same in my motherland, in Kwayama. The tractors, I'm very grateful to government because of the tractor, those who manage the tractor services. I'm only worried this year, when it comes to plowing, they have increased the cost of tractor. Say, for you to have 1 hour, 2 hours, and the villagers are now telling me, oh sir, they say it's 2,500,000 for 1 hour or 2 hours, and that is too heavy. Okay. So when I live here, for example, this has stimulated me to pass through the Minister of Agriculture to negotiate. Swissman
is still asking that while you were working in the UN, what did you do in terms of building schools, hospitals, and
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. You build schools. I was here at UNDP. I was worked in government. We built schools. I conceptualized projects myself. When I worked for the West Northwest Artisanal Fishery and Community Development Project, Rosino, the jetty in Rosino, between Mambolo and Rosino. It was my idea. The schools in Yeliboya, this hospital in Bailo, in Mahera, in Lunge, in Tombo, in many places, I sat down through Naxa, Triple Harbor, then I wrote projects myself, my ideas, and I did that. In the United Nations, I started my career here as a national staff, head of governance justice. I was the first senior United Nations staff after the war, Sierra Leonean here. Only 5 people, Victor Angelo, Nasir Asanga, Samuel Abo, and Jonathan Sandi. So in that process, I brought a lot of the Peace Consolidation Strategy Project, which President Nkrumah inherited, $35 million, which Sierra Leone was the first country to qualify. I wrote it. I went to New York, I defended it. So I have done in my own little way. When I was in Bamako as regional director for West Africa, I sent $4 million to Sierra Leone alone, 1 million force. Here, by State House, the National Committee to establish the National Commission for Small Arms and Light Weapons.
Okay, Dr. Sandi.
So all of this in terms of schools, farming, and this, those are past. We've done that. Okay. I'm saying is the future we want to solve, cost of living crisis, economic hardship, high transportation. Who is best placed to give the idea, the solution to it? That's the solution.
Time is against us, and I really want to bring this person in. Earlier, you were making mention that it's about theories, ideas, and strategies, not crowd. When you go to rallies, would not necessarily, you do not buy that idea. So this person here is saying, Mr. Sandi, where is your political base? In brackets, your stronghold. They still want to know.
My stronghold is the amputees, number 1, across the nation, the war victims, because the National Unity and Reconciliation is about victims of war. So across the 16 districts, Paul Hussein Bangura, my chairman and leader in Maboroka, is listening to me. Pat Tambafona, the chairman for our party in Bombali district, who was here, they are all listening. Alpha Con. You go to Victor, you go to Salim Mohammed in Cambia, they are all listening, they are all here. So our party is a national party. And when they talk about stronghold, it's not about, I'm a Mende by my tribe. So naturally, for example, I do not oppose SLPP. Because my surname, for example, everybody when we sit here, Lamran, I know my friends, you know my brothers, we are all here, we know each other. For example, this election is not about APC, SLPP or NURP, for presidential, I mean. It is really who has the ability and skills to move Sierra Leone from where we are to resolve those challenges we face. Because, as you say, Jonathan, people understand my dear sister. But as you add Sandi, they say identity, sociologists say identity perception of Sierra Leone. As you say, I am Jonathan, they will say, okay, it's fine, it's a Creole boy. But as you say, put Sandi, they say, he's SLPP. So that's how we have fixed our country. As you say, Ogbula, you say Oture, those names are associated, we have fixed them, Tula, Ogbula, Toli, to the APC. We need to unravel that. That's what I'm working, the ideology you spoke about, cut across. We need to overcome the identity, ethnic, regional thinking that we should not be campaigning or voting based on Mandela versus Knight. No, we have passed that. A nation should go back. So when it comes to base, I can say, for example, okay, now I'm going to my village, I'm doing farming. It's a base. I can say I'm going to Bo, my mother's home. I'm a Mende, the tyranny of numbers, we are 31%. I can capitalize on that. I can then go, I'm seeing it coming. But I do not want to say, when you say cut across, I mean sincerely, I went to school in Mabroka, I was born in Kono, I went to school in Masanke, primary school, I worked in the fishery sector in the north. So we are Sierra Leoneans, for God's sake.
It's around 75 days now to the June 24th elections. Yes. You've still not prepared your manifesto yet?
No, everything. I just gave you that.
No, you just explain your plans. You just
everything is set, and next week you will see another wonder.
Okay, so
the other wonder is we are displaying our manifesto. But besides manifesto,
you'll be launching your manifesto next week. Is that what
maybe
you're saying?
A joint manifesto will come.
A joint manifesto?
Don't worry, it will come. You are talking about political strategy. It's a game theory.
I want to get that clear. A joint manifesto.
There's nothing wrong for a joint manifesto
with another political party.
I'm saying yes, Lamran. I know you are. This is not hot seat.
No, I'm asking. I'm just asking. What you said is very.
It's very interesting
to make it clear for the public.
The cut across ideology always has been based on closing the gap between different political parties. And if it's going to be that way, let's accept it if it happens. But I'm saying it personally, we have the National Unity and Reconciliation. First of all, we are launching my statement of declaration. It's a policy agenda. Then the manifesto is ready. If that's what you want, my guys.
Are you in alliance with, are you in talks with?
Political strategies, when they are mature, press releases, a media advisory note will come to your office. You are a manager. It will come to you. Wait for a minute, it will come.
No, but you mentioned passively that we should expect a joint manifesto. So I want you to make it very clear to the public. People who are watching and listening.
No, but I am not here to talk about a coalition or a strategic alliance. I'm here to talk about the beautiful convention we have had, the political platform we have. She's asking what is our base. Those are the things I'm discussing. When we reach to that stage, Lamrana, obviously, as a younger brother,
how do you fund your campaign?
Through membership dues, through donation. I mean, this is an opportunity. I wanted to conclude with that. I'm very grateful to some of our diaspora members, brothers and sisters, who, beside my own resources, our party resources, because of the economic hardship, where can amputees and more victims, youth and women, who are unemployed, the majority are part of my party. But I'm very grateful to our brothers and sisters in the diaspora who, in their little way, have been contributing small to our project. So after this, what you should be asking us, the government, we manage the new political party registration act. Guess what happened? We managed and put that to place. And like the African Union Charter on Democracy, Elections and Good Governance stress, Article 3 say, every government should be providing subvention to political parties, so that political parties are not civil society, we are not media entity, we are not private sector. NURP is not owned by Jonathan Sandi, NGC is not owned by KKY, my brother, PMDC is not owned by Charles Magai, Femi Clodosko do not owe UP. But what we are doing is clear ideas. We kill if we don't support multi-party democracy. Guess what? Subvention achievement was put in that. The chairman of PPIC can told us the other day, when the bill went to Parliament, it was took out. They said we should not fund political parties. And this is what I'm saying. Yet we all have ideologies we want to fix this country. If we say we have moved our country from one-party state to multi-party democracy, for God's sake, international treaties and protocols, such as the Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance by ECOWAS, and the African Union Charter on Democracy, Election and Good Governance, we say all member states should be providing administrative support to build the capacity of political parties. We are not doing that well. The Francophone countries are doing it well.
In 2018, you ran with a woman. Are you going to do that?
Look, Lambrana, you know me for far too long now. We started this journey, remember, before you came here. You started this journey with me. I'm very grateful to people like you. Conceptually, we started this. We used to be, women are part of this equation.
Are you going to run with a woman?
We did that.
Are you committing of doing that as well?
Lambrana, this is a decision of the party National Governing Council. I have in my mind definitely to shortlist every running mate, and priority as I did, it was only 2 candidates that did that. Rest assured, women are priority in my life. If my National Secretary General is a woman now, I'm very grateful to Pastor Tambak-Beki, who has served in that capacity for 4 years, but yet he gave off, he stepped down for a lady to lead our party, the National Secretary General of our party, and the women's leader, the financial secretary, the auditors. I think we are near that. Okay. It's a party for women. It's a party of reconciliation and inclusion. And
Zulai has a question before we end.
Yes, a person was asking if you have collected your identity card before I...
Yes, I think thanks for the reminder. The interesting thing is, among all the candidates, I came from Mozambique and I went straight to Bo, where I grew up in Moriba town. So I have not gone because we have been busy with the national convention. But I'm sure that this week it's a priority for me to travel to Bo, to go home. I think you can never be a king without a kingdom. My kingdom is back home to collect my ID card in my mother's village. I would think I'll lie down and suck Bobby and then see my late mother's grave. So I'm going back to collect that ID card in Bo in the next few days and then come back. Because during the election, I think I'll also have to, my command structure in terms of command and control will lead from wherever I could be, but again, cast my vote in Bo and then come back home.
What are your chances of winning this election?
It's very great. I've told you my target is 55% of 3.4 million. Okay. So it's about 1.7 million. I've done the mathematics by district, by that, my ward. I do not have to hatch my political strategy and campaign winning. But I am sure that I have that, and I think it is coming. The thing is, we need sincerely to go beyond identity, tribal and regional campaigns and political system. And if you vote for me on my birthday, and I'm sure it will be, will redeem this country. This country, we have to battle for redemption of the soul of this country. And I'm here by the name of Jonathan to make sure the gift from God will overcome, or Allah will overcome that challenge. And I'm here to put Sierra Leone. My mission is simply to put Sierra Leone back on track, to beyond politics of exclusion.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Jonathan Sandi from the National Unity and Reconciliation Party, the NURP. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Lamrana. Thank you, Adas.